It's 3 o'clock. I'm calling to order the special board meeting of the Netarts-Oceanside Sanitary District, May 23rd, 2025.
Is there a waiting room up there, Brian? I can't see, but
Okay,
And
you
you get an
don't see
alert
anything on the screen.
to pop right in, and then you accept them and you see anything.
Yeah, there's nothing to people there, but
That's myself and Dave. Okay.
Well, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully Simeon will check in. This meeting is being recorded, and I'd like to go around the room. And if everybody would just introduce themselves. I'm John Prather, board member, board chair.
Jim Carlson, at large person.
Brian Mullen, lead operator.
Rob Hoper, member of the Oceanside Volunteer Emergency Readiness Team.
Craig Child, member of the same team.
Jeff McBrayer, NOSD board member and fire chief of Oceanside Netarts.
Jerry King, treasurer on board.
Erin Mello, office manager.
Dan Mello, NOSD superintendent.
And we should probably reflect that Simeon, board member Simeon Dreyfus is trying to get on. He said that he is waiting for someone to let him in, but we don't see that on our end.
So I'd like to,
Offer a comment to start. Please do.
I just wonder if we could write up a quick agenda. So we know what we're gonna be talking about.
There, you
No.
I did a very
Oh,
quick.
okay, good. Great.
It's basement with the comics box on district property. It's the only discussion that I put on,
Okay,
other than call the meeting to order guests. And
okay.
so that's what we have.
This is John. There are a number of issues related to that sighting. Just about everybody here knows, and I'll pass this out. This is sort of a little bit of a history of where this whole situation started from, as far as the involvement of the state and that came to us in very early April, as far as the award goes. They apparently had other individuals that turned, or communities, what have you, that turned down the container, the connexes, because they couldn't get the work done that needed to be done. And some of them found, I guess, the cost to be excessive. But Randy Thorpe, our county emergency preparations individual, suggested Oceanside and Cape Mears. And I guess I have to, as far as I know, when this was brought to Jerry as the person from Oceanside Protection Society who wrote the grant, it was accepted. And then, in a sense, the fireworks started in that there was an outfit called Fixed Resilience, which was contracted by the state to prepare the containers and deliver them, and I guess procure all the supplies to go in them. So if you go to item 12, I just wrote down a number of the possible issues. Perhaps the way to start is for Dan to find us, Simeon.
Trying to, can you look on your computer? I can't see you. So everyone will speak about that. Yeah, but I'm trying to. There's an opening up to allow me to invite somebody else. I mean,
And
you guys
also,
can carry on.
also,
I mean,
we as a board made a resolution last week, which was the last board meeting we had.
Correct. And that was to, as I remember, authorize up to, what, 25,000?
25,000, not to 16.
We did not know what might be the reimbursement at that time. But I think that needs to be further discussed today. Bearing in mind that the letters just hit for a $10 increase to the monthly fees for our customers. So with that, I don't know, a couple ways we could go. Jerry, I don't know whether you want to talk about what you've learned, you know, as soon as Dan comes back in, and we can jump into it from there. Again, I just listed some items. This Connex is more complex than what Rob Hoper had proposed 2 years ago, which was a Connex without power, and just as a pure storage location. So now this requires power and some other requirements. So I'm handing it over to Jerry, but you can jump in as you've been part of these conversations as to where we are at right now.
A lot of what I have to say depends on what Dan says, so probably might be more logical and time saving
Okay,
for Dan to talk about where he is in terms of costs and discovery on that stuff.
I'm trying to get Simeon into this.
Yeah, I think that's important.
It is,
yeah.
and we're having a problem somehow linking.
Can I use the phone?
You want to make an additional one?
Let me just call him on my cell phone. Put him on speaker.
Well,
Transfer it here and we can put speaker.
he's not, what's called. Okay, now we need to pay attention to what's going on with this. So, where are we at this?
He just gave us a chronology up to the point of the resolution. And
Well, initially the Connex box was trying to, we thought we put it on the required part service that was needed. And we were going to run power.
Okay, Simeon, are you there? Oops. Is this Simeon? Okay, there you go. Okay, hold on just a moment. Can you hear us, Simeon?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Okay.
Okay, Simeon, I kind of gave a rundown on a little bit of history. And now Dan is going to talk a little bit about where we currently are at. And Jerry will chime in as he has had several conversations with state folks also. So please, Dan, go ahead.
Okay, so where we're at, the Connex box was delivered to the NOSD site. We placed it back behind the headworks where we thought we could get power to it fairly easy without having to cut up most of the parking lot to get electricity to it. The cost of it exceeded even the engineer's estimate. So went to the board, explained what was going on and how much it, by the engineer's estimates, what we thought it would cost to put the Connex box by fastening it down, anchoring it by the county requirements because it exceeded 120 square feet, and then getting power up to it. Well, the initial estimate was between 11 and 15,000. The actual estimate from the contractor came in at 20,000. So, but the board had already approved up to 25,000. And that's what we thought would be within for anchoring to meet the county code and also for placement and also for power. It exceeded all what the board did approve. The 25,000 then increased to over 38,000. When I got the actual
For the electrical.
The electrical went to 20,000 from between 11 and 15,000.
And the anchoring added another.
And then the anchoring added another 13,000.
Well, I'm confused. It was my understanding that it was gonna take more than 24 or 25,000 to do the engineering for the electrical. It just alone,
Engineering and construction of it,
not the anchoring.
not the anchor.
Okay, just
So
to be
what happened was,
clear.
to be clear, and I'm not sure I answered that correctly, to be clear, we were assuming between 11 and 15,000 to do the anchoring. Then we were the electrical. Then we were assuming that the anchoring was going to be around 10,000, which brought the total to about, 23,000, something like that.
That was the assumption.
So that was the engineer's estimates that we went off of that I gave to the board.
And Jerry, this is where you get your help. It was my understanding that this was reimbursable commitment we were gonna make
Well,
as the board.
I think because all of this might be moot based on new information Dan has, maybe let him finish the story, because he's gonna take us to a new figure, I believe.
Yeah.
So let's let him, we won't have to worry about that because I think he's got good news.
So the estimate that you approved was within the engineer's estimates. The actual estimate from the actual contractor, once he got all material prices and all that, it exceeded 20,000. Well, then there was not enough left to do the anchoring. Even if the anchoring stayed at 10,000, you're at 30,000 right there. I think it came up with 30,700 and something once I got all the numbers in.
So then you and I had a further conversation.
And yeah, we had the conversation about that. And well, there was, I think, other conversations. There was talk about just getting reimbursement for just a couple of the engineering invoices, estimates that we had to date. So when the board made the motion, my understanding, the motion was made to not to exceed 25,000, and it was to be reimbursement was part of that approval that the board made. Okay.
That's not what I understood, but just, can you go on to your new information? Because
I can tell you what I understood that we approved. But why don't we hear the rest of the story first?
yeah,
So you want the story of
you went back to the drawing board. I had made some comment. Why don't we just do an extension for it?
so Jerry had said, why is this costing so much? When I told him the near $40,000 number, he said he was envisioning, why don't you just get an extension cord and plug it in? Well, it dawned on me that about 2 o'clock in the next morning, we actually have a plug-in with virtually for an extension cord. Only it's at that end of the shop. The reason it was not entertained to begin with was because our drawings and our as-built show that as a 30 amp, 120 volt RV plug-in out there. I completely forgot that we had the Fed trailer here, remember, for the road work for the Cape Mears Loop?
Yeah.
They had to come in and upgrade our electrical systems to put in a 50 amp, 240 volt to feed their trailer. Their job trailer was a job trailer and a lab. Okay, so it required a lot more voltage and amperage. That's how, but when I talked all this through with the engineer, our electrical engineer, those are not in our as-bills. That is an add-on. That's why I'm big on making sure we update as-bills, which would have probably saved a lot of grief for everybody. So I got here the next morning, and it was after Jerry and I spoke on the phone. I went out there, and for sure, there was the 50 amp plug. I went in to where our electrical panels are in the back shop. And certainly right there, the new transformer, it's all stated 80 amp total. And it's also stated 240, 120 volt. So the Connex box falls within the parameters of that connection that's on the fire department's wall outside. That was installed during the project for emergency reasons, FEMA trailers, things like that's why that was installed. So, which we split with the fire department, but that's what was installed now. It's only been upgraded since it was installed when the building was built. So there's no more need for expensive running power and transformers and stuff out of this building. We can now go off of the shop where the power exists. There was, because it's considered a permanent structure, because you're running electrical conduits and power to it, it'll have to be anchored down. You can't just use a plug, it'll have to be hardwired in, but the other trailer was hardwired in as well.
And also the anchoring engineering became less complex
Yes.
because there's no
underground infrastructure over there. There's no force mains, there's no piping, there's no electrical, there's no nothing over there.
That's where it sits right now.
No, where it sits right now, we have infrastructure that we have to work around. Over there, we don't. We can pick a spot, say, set it right here.
Oh, I get you.
Okay, so now we can place it over there. You still need the anchoring. The county still requires that on the permit, but now we can just use the sketch. And I did verify that with the engineer. We can just use the sketch that they provided us already.
county.
They still say go with option, I think it was 3, I can't remember which one. It was the last option on there.
Yeah, I mean, the county doesn't care which of the options, but we
Right,
look
but
at number
the
3.
engineer said that you don't need them. It's stuff like that.
So we'd have to have a design done, we'd have to pay for engineering.
Basically, your design's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just
They
got
would
to
do
find
the
a
permit right off
contractor
that.
to build it. You just got
So when we made that decision, the board made the decision last week, just so you guys know, Dan had real concerns about how we're going to deal with the electrical and whether the electrical was going to have some kind of catastrophic problem somewhere down the road, and that would affect the plan. So that's not the case now, right?
correct. You're going off a completely different building. None of that
I mean-
building is connected to any of our
But there-
electrical panels that operate the treatment system.
I mean, I don't know how long we spent, but it felt like we spent at least a half an hour talking about
Yeah.
that. So
Okay, so now.
That's why-
Now you have estimates for electrical, the new electrical, is that what this is?
Yes, so this is I gave the measurements and pictures to the electrical contractor. And that's what he estimated right here, 12,139.48.
And do we have
So we-
quotes?
Asphalt.
Yes, because the conduit has to be buried 18 inches deep. That's a requirement. So yes, the asphalt, 20 foot of asphalt would have to be cut. That's long. I don't know how wide of a ditch. It probably won't be more than 6 to 10 inch wide ditch.
Is that
Well,
included in the,
no, that is not. This price excludes trenching, backfilling, paving, patching, or painting.
Do you
So
have a sense of how much that might cost?
I do not. I was hoping that you had got some information, on excavation. Didn't you tell me that you were getting something from somebody with like contacts for
Oh,
excavator?
I was just gonna give you the Cape Mears vendors,
Oh, the vendor.
the vendors that are doing the Cape Mears installation. And I thought I forwarded it to you.
No, I have not seen it.
Okay,
No.
so go on, tell me about it.
I just, the last email I have is the conversation happened with, Marlene. I think that's her name.
Yeah. Um, So, okay, so we now have a new scenario with less involved electrical engineering. We don't know yet what the cost of anchoring will be over there. Will it be different than what was over here?
No, it's not gonna be, there'll be no asphalt to cut as far as to set it in. You still
Right.
gotta cross the driveway. We can still go with that $10,000 number, $11,000, is what we can go with until we actually get a contractor to take that drawing that you have and we give it to a contractor, then he'll give us a price on what it would be to put those footings.
Okay,
And then we could probably have them add in for saw cutting the asphalt for the electrician. I really don't want to put it on the electrician because the markup is extreme. So, we could probably hire the, excavating company to do the footings and also do the trenching. And then the electrical contractor just comes in and lays all the electrical conduits, makes all the connections.
all right.
So do you think we can, what, do it within that? What's your cost?
At this point, now, remember, I'm shooting in the dark here on an excavator availability and the cost of an electrical company to do it. I'm gonna have to just kind of fall back on what the engineer's estimate is of around $10,000. I think it was 3,000 for engineering, but we don't need engineering now, so. I'm gonna go on their estimate of construction part then.
Okay, I guess I can now pick up my conversation with the state. First of all, once again, they are beating on me for quotes. We need quotes. We need them yesterday.
Who's they?
The state. The state that I'm working with,
This
the
is
grant
the
people.
folks on the first paragraph.
Here's your
First
electrical quote
page.
that you can get.
The resilience and
One
emergency
quote that
management.
includes all the elements. I've been saying this over and over again. They want one quote that is made up of all the individual quotes we're getting, so I can give them a figure based on all the quotes. And, okay, so let me just, I've been gaining further understanding of how this works. And the work quotes and bids and estimates gets tossed around, so I've been getting clarity here. This isn't a reimbursement grant, it's a payment grant. They will pay OPS enough money to cover the quotes that we get for all of the work, which means they need to be actual reliable bid quotes, because we're not going to get any more money than what we tell them we've gotten in estimates. But once we have that figure, they will work up the agreement with OPS and we sign it. They pay off of the quotes and we only report later that we've satisfied all the invoices, that we or somebody has satisfied all the invoices on the project. And I report back and prove that. And my question to them, that just got clarified today because I kept saying reimbursement. They kept saying, this isn't a reimbursement grant. You don't have to front the money. You give us the quotes. We grant you the money. You tell us what's going to cost, and you use that money to satisfy your expenses. So I emailed and I'm waiting for an answer. I said, does that mean, if I got an answer, does that mean we don't have to get the work done by June 30th? If you only need quotes and we're going to pay off the quotes, do we have to kill ourselves getting the work done by June 30th, which is that's their disbursement deadline for the legislation that gave them the grant?
Who's OPS?
Oren?
OPS? Who's
Oh.
that?
That's the Oceanside Protection Society.
It's the nonprofit.
The 501c3. We were actually thought we were just gonna be the paying agent. We thought we were just gonna get the money and get the box and transfer it, because we've done with other grants. But it ended up, we have to own the box, the recipient of the grant. We'll deal with that. But, so, did you ever, up to this point, all they're saying is so far, before June 30th, we just need to have exact quotes for all the work that's going to be done. And then we got the agreement, I signed it, and they pay all of that money. And then only later do they come back and say, okay, show us that you've satisfied all of the invoices that came in. I'm still waiting to confirm that timing issue. So, and I also said, this is coming in to be more money than NOSD can cover. And they said, it is not unusual or inappropriate for there to be contributions so that it's split. That NOSD wants to cover a certain part of it up to what you can, and they cover what they will, which so far their average grant has been 15,000 for the expenses, and for Cape Mears it is 18,500. Give us our target. So they said splitting it is okay, and that you and I, OPS and NOSD, can have a memorandum of understanding about the ownership of and operation of the package, which will be whatever you guys want. I'll be agreeable to anything. But in terms of, with access, all that stuff, we just agree. There are other nonprofits that are hosting, other entities like NOSD and other situations that are hosting the box for a nonprofit like NOSD is for OPS. So that's that.
We're not a 501c3.
No, you're a public entity.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a big difference.
Doesn't make a difference to them. It makes a difference to
Makes
our
a difference to me.
Oh, no. I'm from
I
the
mean,
standpoint of my interactions with the state.
You know what?
That doesn't matter to them. All of this matters to NOSD, of course. I'm just trying to lay out all of the parameters I've gotten. So where that leads me is that we're still getting our quotes and we still don't know the total, but we're getting close. Because
I have not worked on the actual contacting a contractor to build what the sketches that came from Sonoma County themselves.
Okay.
When I do it as an NOC official. That means I am hiring, I am guaranteeing that.
Nevertheless.
The board just last Thursday approved up to 25,000 to do this. I have not contacted a contractor. I've been solely working through our engineers and getting our estimates is what I thought my job was. My job is to get the estimates for this work.
When I called you on Monday, I said, I don't want this to be dead time. Can you please get a hold of the contractor so we get numbers for the actual mechanical? So that hasn't happened yet.
There was no way for it to happen until there was no authorization from the board for me to do that. That came Thursday.
Okay, moving forward, how long do you think it will take to okay, I'm assuming, I guess we need to move to resolution. From my standpoint, the state has been waiting a month for us to get the quotes on this. We had to work with the county to get from there to come up with a solution. You and I knew basically what this was going to involve Monday. And I said, okay, good. Move forward on getting numbers on that. Not make commitments, but get numbers on that because the state is screaming and yelling about me getting.
So I have numbers, but they're engineers' estimates.
Okay.
They're not an actual estimate like we.
I understand. You told me that on Monday. You told me that on Monday, and I said, okay, let's get the actual contractor quotes. So that, as far as I'm concerned, that's an important next step just for my dealing with the state. If I have to get all of these quotes, once we authorize whatever we're going to authorize, I absolutely need to get quotes as fast as we can. I am trying to find out whether that means we have to have completion.
So if I understand what you're You're wanting me to get the quotes for these, for the anchoring.
Yeah.
Okay, I was unaware that I was going to go out and find a contractor. The estimates I was, what I understood, the estimates I was getting, what I was getting was from engineers' estimates that would estimate what a contractor would charge to install whatever design we were going with.
Okay, yeah, you expressed that early on during our Hawaii trip, and I looked back on email. I don't understand that I am contacting or hiring anybody. I don't know anything about that, that you were helping us with that.
And that's when I thought I explained it. I contacted and got estimates from the engineer. The next step after, you have to give something to the contractor
Right.
to give you a quote.
I understand.
At that point, I had nothing. I had no design from the engineer yet on exactly what was going to be required to place it where it sits right now.
Okay, I understand the two parts and stuff like that, so it's.
So now we have a sketch. Engineer said you can use that, place it over there. This just all came about this week.
Yeah.
So now we can use that sketch. Now we have to find a contractor.
Okay,
Sure.
Can I say something?
Right.
Cape Mears has a contractor, they've already got a quote, and it's like hundreds of dollars to do this design, number 3.
The anchoring,
Mhm.
and
do you have a copy? There,
I don't have anything from Cape Mears.
I'm gonna find my email.
Hundreds.
That's what he said. She said,
Camping to pour concrete.
We don't have to guess. I've got a copy of their documentation. I just gotta find it. I asked the state to give me what Cape Mears had given them for their quote so that we could follow the same formatting.
It sounds like they're gonna put it in stilts. They said just 4 pilings.
yeah, and welding to the box is included.
because I don't know where that's situated, that box, the Cape Mears box.
At the water district, the Oceanside water.
Okay,
That's not the permit I saw that came from Tillamook County Road Department. It was a slab of concrete that they had, that they were requiring them because that water plant actually sits on county property. So the county road department, we have a copy of it here in our records that will show the requirement was a slab of concrete that was 4 inches or 6 inches wider than the box itself with 4 anchoring points.
Okay, that was like option 1, I think. Okay,
No, these
They
are
were going with
those
the
options that were given. It has to do with what the county's requiring Oceanside Water District to do within their baseline. So,
Because it's in the right of way.
Yeah.
And that's part of the roads department responsibility.
and that's what I was trying to get away from was that slab of concrete, because that's not gonna be cheap.
okay, all right.
So, that's what they were, and if you're talking about the one right down the new bypass, right? The water treatment plant,
That's where I understand it's going.
and that's the paperwork that I got from Tillamook County Road Department, not from planning.
Okay,
And they made a requirement of this slab of concrete.
maybe I misunderstood. I talked to Miriam from Cape Mears yesterday.
This information's all coming in, and
Yes.
it's hard to make sense of it, it
Yeah.
really is. Because I didn't think we would be required that because we're not on county property. This is basically NOSD property, so I wouldn't think the county would have that kind of authority.
and part of the discussion we had as a board last week was that if anything was gonna happen to negatively, it would probably be a heavy wind
Mhm.
that would, knock the thing over,
Right,
and
okay,
who knows where it'd end up.
okay,
So that's why we're a little bit concerned and wanting to make sure that this is done. I don't know, 80 miles an hour to what, but
If I
it gets pretty windy up here.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, copy of that, though. I mean, if we can get away, I'm not opposed to getting way cheaper, doing something as long as it's adequate and meets those requirements.
It's the estimated costs. It just looks like a list.
Was that from them or is that from their contractor?
This, no, I think this is just it's just a form that Kate Mears filled out.
So anyway, my understanding of the emails I got on that project down there. Oceanside Water District down Fix Resilience as the contractor. Fix Resilience will not be the contractor.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so when they first went for their permit from the county. So I've been waiting to see the paperwork where that has been kicked back because Fix Resilience will not do any construction work at all.
Yeah.
They'll assist with helping you get information,
Right.
but they don't do any actual shovel work at all. And that's who Oceanside Water District listed as the contractor.
Oh, okay.
As a general contractor,
Yeah,
but they had subcontractor that was gonna do the actual construction of the anchoring probably.
Yeah, it was a brief conversation, but she basically said, yeah, we've got so-and-so doing the electric, it's costing this much, we've got so-and-so doing the slab or whatever it was.
Right.
The
anchors.
and she said something like $800, including the welding to the box. So
I would assume your welder would cost you more than that.
Well, I mean, there's people that charge, just to show up around $1,000.
text Miriam and see if she has some candy.
Yeah. And I hate to be, kind of, but I still don't understand about the reimbursement piece. I mean, how much money do you guys have that you're going to put into this?
Us meaning privately?
No, your nonprofit.
No, we didn't have any, we were expecting to put any money into it.
Well-
We were just the applicant for the grant. We have some cash that we were gonna, if we had to front some money, when we thought it was a reimbursement situation, maybe $5,000. But no, we were the pass through on it. So then Dan brought it and, came up with the idea that there was enough beneficial use down the road for NOSD that he could justify it as NOSD, and it would also eliminate any questions about who owned the site or the work in the future, that it would be better if NOSD owned it.
The infrastructure piece.
On the power coming through here, because we would use it, we're not using any power out there.
Okay, so if NOSD is changing its position, that's news to me.
I don't know, well,
What's going on with technology?
I don't know what NOSD's position change would be. That you would mention.
That it was gonna go from NOSD paying for it to NOSD not paying for it.
which might have been the case had it been placed next to the headworks, because there was a benefit to be arrived at with having the power out there in that area, 20 feet or so from the Connex box, which could have been plugged into for welders and other equipment, heavy equipment that could be used. But if we transition to the end of the building in the back over here next to the EOC, there's no benefit to the sanitary district at all in making that move.
I follow that logic. It's just the first I've heard of it.
Oh, okay.
So there was no way to NOSD to pay for it unless you board members actually approved it. That came Thursday. The problem with having a board meeting once a month is that, these take a long time to get approvals. So, NOSD would get no beneficial use out of this new cost estimate. It's strictly just for the Connex line. What it does say is there's no longer 200 feet of conduit, and there's no longer all that expense to run that out that far. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm thinking it's gonna cost you some more than what you think. Put something in underground.
Well, I have the estimate for the power. I do not have an estimate other than what the engineers gave me to put in what the estimated to put the anchoring.
Okay.
So those are the estimates I thought I was supposed to be getting, which I got. It's just that we got to give them to,
Rob, can you
Correct.
contact Kathy?
I'm contacting Miriam right now.
Okay, about who the contractor is?
Yeah.
so the board approved last Thursday with conditions on how to expend district funds. That one condition was they expected reimbursement. Am I correct?
Well, that's what why I'm asking.
Yeah.
That's-
So that's,
It was conveyed to me. That it's going on the assumption that the beneficiary from which NOSD was that NOSD was gonna pay for it and it was not gonna be a reimbursement, which I then relayed to the state saying, yay, we don't have to worry about meeting your deadlines on reimbursement because NOSD is gonna cover this. And now everything's changed, but
The recollection, if we said that we would, be headworks and then that perhaps would be reimbursed the distance from the headworks to the box. With the new, location, there isn't sort of it anymore that is on our headworks. It's a little bit hard for me to know. We don't know what the overall cost of it is. Just have a sense of how much NOSD might be willing to, seems like we need to get those estimates, the hard numbers, and then, forward them to the state to see what the state's willing to do, and then we can have a conversation about whether or not there's any contribution NOSD would be willing to make towards it.
so I could justify, as I told you on the phone, I could have justified power out to Basin One.
I understand all that.
Yeah,
And
so
that's gone away. I get that.
yeah, so, but that then exceeded what the board approved last Thursday. Once the next morning, I actually got the estimate on that idea, that project, to put the Connex box where it's at and get the power out all but to 20 feet. Now, the board is the one that set the parameters on what they're willing to approve. So they were only willing to approve expenditure out, which you and I did talk about. So I didn't know how much the board would approve, but I presented it to them. And they gave me a do not exceed of 25,000, which I still thought it was still doable at that time. Because remember, I had engineers.
I am not unclear on any aspect of technology. I am not unclear on any of those things. I understand that because we're moving over there, it's going to cost less. Now NOSD isn't committed to cover any part of the cost. So now I need to know what the cost is going to be, so I can know whether or not the state's going to cover it or whether there's overage. And when I know what the overage is, I'll know whether I have to tell them, never mind, come get your box. So I'm trying to get to that point.
So that's a board decision. If as a board, you authorize me to have the electrician come put the electrical out to where the Connex box would be, that's a board decision.
Based on your position of whether it benefits or not.
Whether
I'm a board member and I'm going to rely on it.
right. So whether it benefits the district,
Right.
this isn't something that NOSD I can see using. But what I also said was the fire district and NOSD built the RV connection for FEMA trailers and stuff, if you want to relocate that box over next to where we've already installed the clean out for the sewer, because that's what those
Right.
job trailers use.
Sure.
That's a board decision. That's for emergency preparedness, I guess.
NOSD emergency.
Yes, NOSD emergency preparedness along with the fire department. So we're joint owners of that box out there right now.
Yeah, it seems to me that the pressing issue at this point is getting some hard numbers, because without knowing, what the asphalt cutting would be, and having a total estimate based on the component parts of the job, the electrician, asphalt cutting, the anchors, it's hard to make a decision of how much NOSD is willing to how much the board is willing to contribute towards having this charts. So it seems like the next thing we need to do is to authorize Dan to get those hard estimates so that we can then have a conversation about what we're sending to the state and what NOSD is willing to cover.
And also, Dan is now communicating that he had not intended to be part of finding a contractor. So, and I've completely lost as far as that is concerned. Looks like we could maybe piggyback on Kate Mears and find out whether
The actual contractor, no, I was never, I did not understand, get the structural contractor that would come in and put in the required footing.
I remember the conversation. I remember how much I struggled to make sure there was a distinction between the engineer's estimates and an actual contractor.
Mhm.
And I was saying, Dan, for God's sake, please start on that,
You have,
because that's going to take time.
you have to have,
You didn't say no, so I misunderstood that you didn't understand.
you have to have both.
I know that.
Okay.
And I understood it at the time. And I understood wrongly, Dan was working on that. I understood that wrongly. I worked hard because I don't know this stuff. I was talking slowly to make sure that I was conveying clearly how important it was, because we needed to get these numbers for the state
I know,
by a certain time.
I know, but you gotta have the engineering done before you contact a contractor, because they need to know exactly what they're gonna bid.
I understand.
I was
So
working
I
on,
understood and I
okay,
understood.
I was working on design that we could give to a contractor. That's what I was.
I think I get it all now. So
Okay.
Simeon's right. I'm sitting here, okay, we did lose the time I thought we weren't gonna lose. We lost it. We lost time finding a contractor because I didn't pay that clearly enough. So we're all conveying it now. We need to find a contractor. We could start by asking Kate Mears, are you willing to help us with that? I mean, I can't.
No, I'm not abandoning anything here. I have experience in going after this stuff. I need to be careful, because if I request it, I'm requesting it on behalf of NOSD. So I can contact a contractor. I mean, if you have some names, that's even better. I mean, we have local clinic and stuff like that. This is not complicated to build. Okay. So, but my understanding, when you use the word estimates, I was giving you engineers' estimates. That's usually what we do for funding purposes.
Yeah, no, we were just like this, because
Yeah.
I got that at the time.
Yeah.
There was a difference. Yes.
So I have an estimate, an engineer's estimate for construction. And
I get that. Bob, I get that.
Okay.
I get that.
So, but
I understand.
but I'm not, with all due respect, I'm not sure you, that's the estimate I thought you needed to give the state.
Okay.
That's what I'm conveying. That's step one.
Okay. So what I need is, and to be fair, first of all, in every conversation I've had with Dan, I have told him, thank you so much, and you're a treasure. And this is not any kind of, there's nothing wrong with our relationship here. This is me being frustrated with myself, because I know I knew what you were talking about, but I didn't know what you were talking about. So I didn't understand it right.
So,
But now I know from the state, and I've learned this more clearly just in the last few days, that what we need are not just estimates of what a contractor will likely charge us, that we actually need quotes. But that if we have those quotes, that's all we need. The state will pay for it, even if the work isn't done by June 30th.
Okay.
So I just got.
Jerry, just to clarify,
That's-
we have,
That's
if I
now, right there.
if I can, just for my clarification.
No, I'm waiting for you to jump in, Jeff.
Okay, so a few things. So if we get estimates in the next 4 weeks from a contractor to do the Connex down by the EOC, then the state would likely send us that quoted amount. Is that right, Jerry?
We have to send them quotes. They have to draft the agreement. We have to agree on the agreement. I have to
It
sign.
has to be done
Yeah.
before the end of June.
It needs to be done. It needed to be done 2 weeks ago.
Right. But we,
So
but we
don't
have,
say 4 weeks because they'll shit their pants.
let's say even if, so we need to really come to the conclusion if we have a contract, if we can get a contractor that can give us a quote within 2 weeks. Today is starts Memorial Day weekend, so
Mhm.
Tuesday will be first day so we've got 2 weeks to get quotes. Is that kind of where? I'm
So
at?
it sounds like I'll be doing this. So I now have a design that we can take, that the county supplies. I can give that design to an actual contractor. Okay, so the design for the electrical, I gave to this contractor. He then gave us a quote. Okay. So we need to not think about the engineers no more. We don't think about any of that. I'll take that. I think Rob had the correct drawing too. I think it was number 3 or 4. We can now give that to an actual contractor to bid on, or give us a quote on, not bid on, but give us a quote on.
And that
I can
quote,
do that in, I think, fairly short time.
and should it also then include what wasn't included in the election?
Yes, I'll also tell them about the cutting and the reinstatement of the asphalt and all that. Yes,
Okay,
So would that be a separate contractor or
you'll be dealing with
3?
2 quotes. I'm not gonna use the word estimate anymore. Let's just, you will have 2 quotes. You'll have an electrical quote, and this includes all the materials,
Mhm.
okay, and connection.
Mhm.
And then you'll have a quote. Hopefully we can get one contractor to give us a quote on that design, along with the requirements to dig across our asphalt and then connect to the box on the wall.
okay. And also, we need to include somewhere along the line the money that NOSD has spent.
Yes.
Labor.
So,
Well,
yeah, so not that, but he's got bills from engineering that he's done.
yeah, we've got one we paid and we have one that's still.
Okay. It looks like, without any kind of hassle, we can get between $15,000 to $18,000 covered by the state. We have to find out what the difference between that amount is and what it's actually going to cost as soon as possible.
And that's where payment versus reimbursement,
Yeah,
so that I understand, I don't know if I understand this.
and I brought the emails because it was news to me too, but I can read it.
But there is part of this whole system that there's money at state level that we will get back, so that if we get 19,000, and then my problem is, as a Netarts resident, I doubt if we can even get over here. When push comes to shove. So when we have the increase of the sewer rate and increase in water rates, and now we're doing this. So that's why I'm asking a lot of questions and kind of being hard-nosed about it.
I don't.
Because if somebody down the road is gonna ask me, well, how come you did that? And I want to know how to answer their question.
Yeah, it's Netarts, well, the water and sewer is $25. I mean, you got $10 with us and 15 with water.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm in Tennessee, so I'm on the same water system you are. So, I mean, and the only way you're gonna access this place is probably through the logging roads, if they can be clear. I mean, if Happy Camp goes down,
Can I add to some of that? Because I think Jim's onto something that we need to, I'm just gonna offer up a couple of possibilities if we want to look at them later down the trail, or if this doesn't work out. A 20-foot shipping container, as I'm sure Brian can reflect, is really small, does not hold a lot of supplies. I'm sure you used them I used them in Desert Storm. I'm sure you used them when you were out in the desert.
We had them everywhere out there.
Yeah. So our minimum was 40 foot that we were going to start using for emergency preparedness. So this is a very small Connex box. There's absolutely no reason to have a 80 gigawatt electrical system into a Connex box to run a dehumidifier and a heater. What my offer would be, and what I need to ask Dan for clarification about, is that my board has approved a considerable amount of money to start setting up Connex boxes for Netarts and Oceanside, because you're absolutely right. We will be isolated by the Happy Camp landslide. We will be able to come back around here through Phelps Road, but there will probably be trees down.
Yeah.
So I guess where I'm going is this 20-foot Connex box is causing us a hell of a lot of heartburn. And I think the only guy that's profiting off of that is Rick, the used car salesman that's selling the Connex boxes to the state. If we can get estimates in 2 weeks and the state will reimburse 20 grand and it comes out as a freebie, then it's a great deal. If for some reason it doesn't work out and it doesn't come out to where we can pull this off, I can easily get a modified shipping container that's got a foam liner, that's got a pigtail receptacle out of the side so that we can literally run it into the EOC and plug that in to keep a dehumidifier and a small heater going for a hell of a lot less than we're even paying on the engineering fees. Because I've already got one quoted for Friends Church and Netarts and one for behind the fire station at Netarts. So
it's a 20 or 40.
that's both of mine are 40s and Netarts. The Friends Church and the fire stations are 40. So if this turns into a poop sandwich, the fire district will step in and we will get a Connex box up here. But it's going to have a pigtail, and the question is going to be what is required by the county and what Dan's going to need as far as placement of that Connex, if it has to be on concrete pilings and things like that. I can't take another 20 or 30,000 out of my budget to then magically mount this thing to concrete. So we'd have to talk about that. A 20-foot, if we need to relocate this one for the Oceanside grant and we need to do it in a hurry, it's in the inundation zone. I don't even know if you want to talk to him, Jerry, but today we could drop that Connex box right next to Station 62. There's a power pole right there. I could have Angus come over and run a box to it, and we could drop it there. The question would be about if they would require the anchors would be no problem. I think the question here at NOSD was the engineering requirements were higher because of the way it's laid out. Did I kind of paraphrase that?
What we came up for the initial placement.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if they're okay with just anchoring it into,
But if you put it down there, aren't you in the inundation?
yeah, I'm
zone?
just throwing out a couple options that we have room for a 20-foot that is in the inundation zone.
We, as a partner with NORFD, we installed that electrical system out there for FEMA trailers, emergency
Right.
preparedness. Technically, it's on the wrong side of the driveway.
Yeah.
We should have already moved that across and put it up like you would a ped for like a RV.
Right.
We
Exactly.
ran into that problem when the feds came with their trailer.
And
let's forget about the voltage and the amperage and all that. That box is actually placed in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
It should be relocated across so that it can be used. for
so could
emergencies.
we say that there is a need for the NOSD and Netarts-Oceanside Fire Protection District, that there is a need under that joint emergency preparedness to go ahead and move that box so that that pays for the electrical for this project?
I think so, because we have already found once it's in the wrong spot. Why they put it on the wall, not over where the sewer dump is. There's a sewer dump
Mhm.
for,
An RV or a house?
well,
Yeah.
it's there for FEMA trailers is what
Right.
actually we funded it, or was the reasoning for it.
So it would be easier for us to, in good conscience, as an NOSD board, say we're willing to put that money forward because we'd already agreed that that EOC was going to be part of the overall emergency
Which
preparedness plan.
this is what I was prepared for to discuss, because I already knew this other one. It was justifiable, but this one is not. But to get it, not for the Connex box strictly, but it
Right.
is a use, it's multiple plugins, it should be on the other side. Even if you got a Connex box, you still need a FEMA trailer come in, let's say for emergency. They still need a place, there's a place for sewer. They just have no place to put, power unless we keep going across that asphalt driveway.
So I think I'm just trying to boil it down to fireman terms because I'm not real bright, but so we've got 2 weeks to figure this out at most. To get hard quotes so that we can figure out how much if it's going to be around 15 to 18, sounds like the state will then reimburse.
That's why I wanted to be with you earlier today, discuss this.
I
before the meeting.
apologize. This is meeting number
So,
9.
I'm sorry, Gary, I had all this planned to talk, but him and I.
That was that was on
prior
me.
to. So I think we can justify moving the power across and put it where it was intended to be when we built that shop.
How much does it cost to move one of those things?
I'm not sure you could reuse the current configuration of that box and just go set it on a post or a ped on the other side. I haven't discussed that. I kind of been under the crunch to get numbers here. And I have been trying to get numbers. So, but there is a cost. It was put in the wrong spot when we built that shop.
You were asking about moving the box, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So if we move the box over to where we already paid to
You
put
gotta have somebody to come in to pick it up or slide.
well, they have to disconnect it. They have to run the wires under the conduit.
No,
He's
just
not
to
talking
get,
about the container. He's talking about the electrical box.
Yeah, the Connex.
We'll get to the
No,
container in a minute.
I'm talking about the container.
So,
yeah, that's what I thought.
He wasn't. So,
oh,
I'm assuming we can get
Maybe somebody
our
come
two,
in and drag it over there.
our two districts relocate where the power is in the wrong spot on his wall and move it across to where the rest of the infrastructure we paid to put in.
I know.
Just so that time, he's asking what it takes to take that box there physically and move it to the other end of the complex.
Okay,
Just the box itself.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to keep our terms straight between electrical box and Connex.
Yeah, okay.
So Bill phone twice today with Rick Hudson. Fixed real.
slick.
They will not pay to move it. Probably call Gordon's and have him use a rollback. It weighs 5,000 pounds. Most cars pick up swing about that. Slide it up on there, go set it approximately where it needs to be, but not where we would plan to put the anchors. They can come out and they want to come out Friday and fill it and hook up the cameras and run it on the generator. Okay,
And he
this is
knows,
a new development.
he knows that we're not,
I told him. I told him.
Slick Rick wants to get his money from the state.
So,
Yeah.
which,
obviously.
but right now, it's the discussion that I'm involved in is money, right?
Hmm.
Not where we're gonna set it or who's gonna pay for it. What I'm talking to the fire chief about is that we should relocate that where it belongs. If you're ever gonna use a FEMA trailer, or if you're gonna use any of that, that's where the sewer was put in, was over there.
And I'm totally fine, and I can't give you a hard number because kind of like what Simeon said, what Jerry's saying, if I get a hard number back that says we can get all that done for $20,000 and the state says we'll pay for 15, I'm very sure I can go to my board and ask for 5. What I'm not sure is if I can go to my board and say, can I take half of my emergency
I
preparedness
spoke
budget?
at length with legal counsel about how to do this, where it also passes our auditor. Okay, because one other thing besides all that is our auditor has to, I mean, this has to be justifiable expenditure. If we as joint districts relocate that across, we pay to fix the pavement, we relocate that where it's usable. There's an emergency, like I said, the multiple things that you use. Now, the Connex box, according to Fixed Resilience, is good for 50 people for 3 days, which kind of shocked me, but doesn't matter if it's a 20-foot or 40-foot or multiple. That power still needs to be over there where it's usable and not in our path for trucks and equipment. So this price would probably drop from the contractor, because now his run to the Connex box is going to be
20 feet.
Yeah, instead of 50 or 60 feet.
Still gonna have to
But
do the.
we're under
we're
pressure
still
to
gonna have to
get
go through
Jerry
asphalt.
some numbers. Okay?
Yeah.
So us as a board, your district, are we willing to pick up the cost to relocate that emergency, that FEMA electrical plug-in over where it belongs?
Yeah, I'd be willing to make a motion to do that.
So motion to relocate the electrical box to the other side of the pavement.
Right.
I'd second.
So
Go ahead.
let me
But we,
just ask, who will fund this part of it?
both our districts, because we both own it now. We both own it now. So
Okay, so it'd be a shared cost
Mhm.
of relocating the connections over there to where it should have been in the first place for FEMA trailers and other considerations on the other side of the driveway.
And that will eliminate this guttering between the
yeah,
building.
well, no,
No.
it's just our two districts are relocated.
Okay, I see.
As far as on your part, you know, stepping away from being an NOC board member, on your guys' part, it would just be the amount of the conduit to go 15 or 20 feet, depends on final placement. And we could place it
Of the Connex box.
of the Connex box itself.
And Dan, I guess the only thing I'm saying is, I'm not harping on you, I'm just harping on Slick Rick that I also need to have our numbers hardened and hope that the state will give us 20 grand back. Because I do not want to blow a bunch of money on a 20-foot Connex that has an electrical system that's as big as my house.
Right. So,
Because I can buy us a 40-foot.
but what I'm
and
suggesting has
for the
nothing
same
to do with the Connex. This has nothing to do with.
I
the
know.
box.
But I'm only saying, I'm not saying it doesn't for you. It does with the state, because the state is requiring us to have this stupid electrical hookup. If that weren't the case, as Jerry had said, we could run an extension cord. But we do have a fallback plan. If this all goes to pot, I will get us a 40-foot container. We will run a pigtail. We can run it through to the EOC. And the only thing we're gonna have to figure out is if there's a county requirement of how we brace it to the ground.
Okay, returning back to this box and this proposal, what I'm getting is that if the board approves, the power box gets moved. And then but we still need the hard numbers on what it would cost to connect the electricity from the power box to the Connex, wherever it
Yes.
is, and the increase.
Which I will give you this and you can use this.
Okay,
Okay, the only thing that's gonna change is your material. Okay, so if it's shorter, some of your material costs here would probably drop in this.
We shoot high and they give us 20 out of it.
Right.
'Cause it's
But I'm not
30.
including relocating the box, the electrical box as part of
right.
what they're doing.
So I need,
So
so
we willing, being the board, are you willing to contribute to moving that over where it belongs for future use?
Can we call Burton's and find out ballpark? I'm assuming it's gonna be $800.
So, okay, so because
You think?
fixed resilience is coming in next week, and I told him no, because the box has to be moved, the Connex box.
Yes.
He called me right back and said, no, we gotta bring it all, set it all up, we'll put a generator on it, you better run it in place. Technically, we don't have a permit for placement of that. But if they're bound to do that, then we would have to call Burton's to move it over. We'll set it where that old job trailer was, which will put it within the area where it's gonna finally sit.
I'm gonna guess Burton's is gonna be $800, but I think we should, do you mind calling them, Dan,
No,
on
I don't.
Tuesday?
No.
And just let them know we've got a half, a 20-footer, because I know they move them around town. And I'm just guessing $600 to $800.
So can we go back, because I probably interfered a little bit, and we had a first and a second, but what
Simeon's motion was to
what's
relocate
the
the electrical from its existing wall at the EOC to on the other side of the pavement.
And that approximately would cost,
Well,
We had already approved up to how much?
And-
$5,000.
well, that cost to be shared between the fire district and the sanitary district.
With the hopes that we are
Equal.
reimbursed by the state.
no,
Yeah.
that piece is not going to the
No.
state.
That piece would not be reimbursed, I would assume.
Why not, Jerry? I'm just curious. Why would they not reimburse off the,
Well,
Because Dan is posing it as a necessary expense of NOSD that needs to be done completely independent of the box, because the box is on the wrong side. And it just happens that it will also benefit the box.
Dan's trying to find a way for the board members, so we can justify spending the money, whether it's reimbursed or not, you have to justify spending it. So how do we justify spending the money right now on moving that when it's really no beneficial benefit to the district? So I'm putting
You articulated that it's something that the district needs to do anyway.
Right.
Move the
but do they need to do it now in this budget year? That's the other question.
Okay, I was completely misunderstanding the conversation.
I'm just trying, I
I was
can't,
trying to divide the costs up between NOSD/NOI/PD, and the costs that are gonna go to the grant.
But what keeps coming back is what I hear from the board and what I'm hearing from the fire chief is they want some sort of reimbursement for doing this.
I mean, if the state's gonna, if we can send the state a quote for the electrical and the pad or whatever it is, either the anchors of whatever that is, if they will reimburse, as Jerry said, up to 15 to 20,000, then I feel comfortable speaking for my board that they would not mind sharing whatever the remainder of those costs would be.
Yeah.
50-50 with NOSD. But if you're asking me to spend 10 or 15,000, then I have to go to my board.
the problem I'm having is that I would have thought, and I don't mean to be negative, just that these figures would all be figured out and laid out on, on the table. I mean, like, no one knows how much it's gonna cost to
Right.
move the thing. So that's what I'm struggling with. Once again, I mean,
No, I am too, Jim, because I can usually talk to Scott Campbell and my board and say, hey, I kind of promised we'd spend $5,000 for emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
And they usually, slap me around, but they usually come
Yeah.
through.
anyway,
But I can't promise 10 or 15 without having a board meeting.
The problem that we're having is the tight timeline. This is not a project that we planned out. That's the problem. Not blaming any of you that dropped in your lap
nobody's
on the
blaming.
last minute, but this is not normally how I do a project. Usually I have all this laid out. I'm trying to kind of do it from the middle out.
I just still think we can easily pull, not easily, but I think we can pull this off in 2 weeks to get some verification from some contractors that, what's this total, Jerry? I can't see, I'm sorry.
This one's like 12,000.
So are we close to $11,000 to $12,000? Can you give me a quote? And then, electrical and then anchoring, do you think it's going to be in the same ballpark?
To move that pedestal over will probably be every bit of 10 to 15. Then you have the connection from the pedestal to the actual Connex box. Because it's 50 amps, it won't be a simple plug-in of the hardwired in.
Yep.
And that's electrical code. I mean, you don't get to, say, I just want to run an extension cord.
Right. No, I understand that.
So-
Just, oh, shit, man.
So what are the districts, what I think we're hearing, what are the districts willing to contribute to get the placement of this Connex box put in? This we know we can run the power right where it's at right now over to approximately where the Connex box is gonna sit.
Speaking as the fire
This is a
chief,
hard number.
I would rather make a commitment to the community of Oceanside as I'm making to the community of Netarts for their own, to have a 40-foot container with a pigtail that I will provide to the Oceanside community, which will be housed here. Now, if we need to anchor it, then we're gonna have to figure that out, but I could pay for the Connex box. And then we can stock it with what we actually need, which is not MREs and a pallet of water. We can actually stock it with survivable foods and things like that we're actually working on with the Netarts group, which is going to be more like rice, beans, things like that.
The board needs to make a decision today. Because Fixed Reliance wants to show up, load it up, hook it up, put it on a generator and run it till we move it. And then what they'll do is they'll come back, unload it. Then we'll have to pay to move it, which would be part of probably the structural contractor that will actually mount it on the structure. And then they'll reload it back up for free. But they will not move it from where it's sitting now over to that area. The only reason to move it over there is so we can just run a temporary extension cord across there so you can power it up and not run it on the generator. You can leave it right there and run it on the generator. But I don't know what your commitment is. Do you now own it and so you're committed to finishing it? Because it sounds like to me, Fixed Resilience is gonna come load it, fix it, get it all working, and then they're out of here. They're done with it.
Yeah.
And
So-
no matter where it's sitting or where your permits, they don't care.
Clarification question, not being a smart ass at all. Do we know for sure, because they're gonna start it off of a generator and run it off a generator, which is one of the generators that they're leaving with the box. Is there anything in their rules, I have not read them, that says this has to be hardwired? Or can it run off of one of the generators that they're providing? Because if that's the case, and we don't have to run electrical and we can leave it right where it's at, and it'll run off of a generator, which obviously we can run a dehumidifier off of a 9,500 10K generator, but is there something in those rules that the state sent out that it has to be hardwired?
Well, there's,
To the county.
well, it's up to the county for the permitting, but it is supposed to be hardwired. The generator that you can run off of it is for emergency power
But
outage.
I know, but when you say it's supposed to be hardwired, is that a state requirement as part of the grant?
Oh, that I don't know. I don't think it was stated that clear in the paperwork.
Because if they're gonna
It's
come out here
obviously-
Friday, kick it off with a generator and say everything's great and leave,
So, yes, and they'll leave. The contractor has completed it. But do we want a generator running out here 24/7?
no, because there's no reason to keep,
And
That
who's gonna
going.
fuel it?
Dan, I'm saying there's no reason to keep it powered. There's no reason to keep that box powered 24/7. We would do monthly generator tests on it, run the dehumidifier for a couple hours and shut it off.
Is it,
There's no reason.
What about the Starlink and the camera?
Starlink? I'd already talked to the guy about moving to the EOC.
Starlink's paid for a year.
Yeah, the Starlink was gonna go to the EOC because that's where the antennas are. So I'd already told him if we were gonna relocate it across the parking lot.
This needs to be permanently mounted if it's gonna be here.
That, I don't know how much that costs, but I'm just trying to get out of the $25,000, $10, $15, $25,000 of electrical.
There's another.
You're not gonna-
whoa. Simeon, go ahead.
Yeah, about another 10 minutes before I have to move on to something else.
Okay,
Is there? It seems like things are getting less clear rather than more clear every time we think we proposed moving the electrical box, putting and now we're talking about something else. So I don't know. I'm confused.
Simeon, I'm sorry. I think I created some confusion because when we were talking about your motion, I understood that your motion would be seeking reimbursement or partial reimbursement through the state, and that money would be distributed back evenly to NOSD and NORFD. Now it sounds like there may not be any reimbursement, and I cannot speak for my board on a number over $10,000 and promise that we're gonna be able to pay for what the cost would be for the motion that you made and I seconded. I thought that we would be getting that money back based on the quote that we would send to the state. But if that's not the case, then I can't speak for my board. If it is the case, then I think we're gonna come out of this with a small payment on NOSD's part and a small payment on the fire district's part, which I'm fine with.
Okay, so,
can I just throw in
sure, why not?
one little thing? I don't know if you all are aware, but these boxes were not built to be set up on the coast. The circuit breaker box and that set up 4 to 5 years, and they're gonna fall off the box. They're gonna rust, and they got the circuit breakers in them. So that's gonna be another cost down the road to replace all that.
I'd rather buy you
hopefully
guys
put
a
it on
40
the
foot
inside.
painted, and
Excuse me?
I'd rather just buy you guys a 40-footer that we can actually store enough stuff in. And the only thing we would be losing out of that is the Starlink, which I had already had a setup over there. And the security cameras, which we don't need, and the pallet of MREs, which frankly is not going to help us at all. So whatever you guys want to do, I'm coming to the table. My skin in the game is, if this doesn't work out, I will get a 40-foot container that is designed for the coast with a pigtail that can run to.
Okay, we heard that before. Sorry, but
I'm just trying to help.
that's a contingency. If this doesn't go forward, we gotta figure out if this goes forward first.
So we gotta figure out.
So I want to talk about what we submit to the state. See, the way it works is we give the state all of the costs that we want covered under the grant. And we know that that's going to be in the $15,000 to $18,000 range. And we just need to know how much more than that this project is going to cost.
So there's another problem. When you and I talked about it, I said I could justify to the board extending power.
Right.
Okay. When it came to the board only approved it up to 25,000 if we got reimbursement. Craig even said in the board meeting, I can't guarantee reimbursement. It's on video. We replayed it back. And if you can't guarantee the board NOSD reimbursement for expenditures of this, that's when it changed. It's no longer, the board did not approve it covered by NOSD. The board approved it if they were to get reimbursed for the expenditures. That's,
that was,
that's,
it doesn't, that is not what I was told, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, my understanding, my recollection of our conversation previously was that we were willing to pay for the part of it that was gonna be on our facility and only get reimbursed for the cost of the distance from our head wall to the box, but now it's gonna be in a different spot. And we're paying to move the electric across to where it should be, so it seems like the only part that we would need to get reimbursed for is the anchor and the distance from our new box to where the Connex is gonna be.
That's how I understand it too. Breaking it down.
That's-
components.
on this new suggestion, that's exactly correct.
Okay, and nobody can make decisions. I mean, we need to get some firm numbers now on what those three components are. Because that's what people keep kind of stumbling on. And it's my hope we can get up, to, $18,000. That's gonna be close to, that's gonna be within $10,000 of the total cost. And then we just have $10,000 to deal with, and maybe that's something that can be divided into.
I can speak for 5,000 without
Okay.
Scott beating me up.
So then, going back to, you're willing to export contractors? and
Yeah,
get
yeah,
costs for-
absolutely.
And
Sure.
that would be for the anchoring
For the anchoring,
this is for the connection.
Right.
But it doesn't include digging and the plates.
which we would tell the contractor that's,
Part of the anchoring.
yeah, so they will do all that type of dirt work construction.
Okay,
And,
how about if you, let me finish, please. How about if you get those numbers? yeah, To the point where, basically, you feel comfortable, we give these numbers to the state, that's gonna cover everything that we're gonna end up expending within a close enough amount. And then the board can meet again to see about what we're gonna do with that extra amount, if you know what it is. And it will be $10,000. And the board isn't committing to anything now, and I'm not asking that. We're just committing to just defer this, knowing that the public is willing for something in that range of $5,000. And I also will try to do, if I have to, with community fundraising, but it sounds to me like this is all workable once we know the numbers. And I can go to the state and say, okay, I've got numbers for one component, we're getting numbers for a couple of the other components. If we're gonna get our quotes into you within, a week or two at the max. And we're trying to get it within your 18,000 parameter, or at least have another way to handle it, if it's more than that. And I don't know what else there is to really.
Well, what there is the board lifting the requirement of reimbursement.
For that small amount.
And again, my understanding wasn't that that whole 25,000 was being reimbursed.
right,
My understanding of the previous conversation was that the only part that was being reimbursed was from our head wall up to the box.
Yes, that was not your understanding, correct?
That's fine, but it doesn't really matter now.
Okay.
I think as long as we got this understanding.
So no action will be taken until,
Do we need to vote motion to move the electric over to where we now believe it should be?
The only way you could do that now effectively is if you attach the do not exceed number to move the electric.
Let's just find out what it's gonna cost.
yes, I think Jerry's right. I think we need to get the invoices and he needs to go back to the state. And then we see what kind of money we will get rather than committing any money at this point. And basically say, as part of the motion, if you want to make it a motion, that the $25,000 is dead right now.
Yeah, the premise for it went away.
Is that-
Yeah.
Are you agreeable to that, Jim?
yeah.
Okay,
Sounds, but,
go ahead.
you guys have anything to add? Because, that's a big deal. If it ends up on the front page of the Oregonian, that's where I go with stuff. I've been there and it's not a happy place to be.
The only thing I would add is get all of the quotes and send everything to the state and see what they say. If they go,
Yep.
yeah, well, okay, it's 25,000. We understand all the problems. We'll pay you 25,000, and then see what we go from there.
And I asked the question at the board meeting about whether or not you had been in contact with emergency management at the county level.
I've not talked to Randy at all.
I mean,
I'm in contact with the state grant program.
okay, but I mean, so this is a separate thing from what the county is trying to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so let me clarify, and I'm writing it down, so we'll all be on the same page. I have to get a contractor quote for the anchoring and for cutting across to get the power over to it. We can go off of that quote. Relocating that box off the wall, that's going to be a different quote, and I'll try to get that as well. But let's go with what, because right now, if I do the other thing, we got to go backwards. All right, so we can go with this quote from where it exists now over, and then I will get a hold of a contractor for the anchoring. I will get you got your first estimate here. Okay, I will get you the second estimate. Hopefully I can get that Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, most likely be close to Wednesday. If I can find the contractor, at least to give me an estimate.
Yeah.
Even if they don't take the job,
Not
you're
enough
just after the estimate.
quote.
Quote.
The quote.
Estimate,
Quote.
the
Yeah,
quote.
the quote,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna get money for that quote. I'm gonna have to pay somebody.
Well, no, but yeah, they wouldn't be that far off between contractors, you know.
Okay, and I can add now, I mean, I was waiting because for the financial, the work doesn't have to be done by June 30th.
Right.
All I have to do is have the quotes.
So your electrical quote is gonna have two pieces, but we will submit both pieces to the state. You're saying from the wall to the box to the connex, that in your mind, that's two pieces, but we can submit that entirety to the state, but we'll know what each piece costs.
Right now,
Is that what you're saying?
for the time crunch, what I'm saying is use this one from the wall over,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
And then I will get the anchoring. The anchoring design is not gonna change. We already got that from the county. I just gotta find a contractor that will give me a quote or a bid on. Right?
Yeah.
Those are the two I can get to you. I will work on the other one with the fire chief to see if it's feasible for movement. It's not gonna change your end dollar amount that much anyway.
Right.
We were only talking some piping. Okay,
At where do you put to move the Connex box?
well, that's the next thing. I'm gonna have to call it Burton to pick it up and move it. Okay, so that's pretty minor. I don't know what else that would be, but let's say it's $1,000 or less.
Included in this other stuff.
Right, so I can do that attachment, just like any other, like, invoices we pay. Okay, so then lastly, what do we do with fixed resilience?
To my way of thinking, we tell them, no, don't come in and fill the box and do all this other stuff because there are unresolved issues. And until we relocate and decide that this is what we're gonna do, we don't want to see anything more than just a box sitting there.
They're pretty fixed on the 12th, they're like the range schedule.
Yeah, because they want their money.
Well, it's not Rick, it's Orem. They're bringing bucks. They're scheduled to get out to visit Cape Mears and us at the same time.
They said they had others scheduled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are providing the staff to move the supplies in and out and back in and out again after we move it. They're providing that. And I got that was a text I got just before the meeting because yeah. I don't know that right now it looks to me like as long as everything's set up so that they can do their own inspection with the power and everything, that after that, and that basically that's all they need plus the quotes to send out the money. And I asked and I got an answer. I said, does this mean you'll pay off the quotes and the work doesn't have to be done by June 30th? And they said, no, it does not have to be done. You just subsequently report how you spent the money with receipts, and they said, "Can you give any indication of a time frame?"
So the one thing that nobody can get, no
And
matter
you're
how
not-
much you want it, the final cost is the permits. The permits are charged off of the amount of the project with the county. Okay, so no contractor, even with their quote, can tell us what the county is gonna charge for the permits, for the electrical or for the actual structural amount of it, until they get the cost. Just,
Oh, okay.
so.
So when they give us the cost.
So
they'll
the
give us cost of
contractor will
permit.
go in and he will give the county the cost. They will then stamp on there whatever their review fee is. It goes off a percentage of the overall project.
So can't they tell us what the permits will be once they know that?
The contractor, once he goes in with it, he should know right then, but he's not gonna have it to you in the bid.
Okay, but when he gives you the bid, can't you tell from that what the contract, the permit's gonna be?
I don't know what rates they charge for reviews.
I think it's on the county website, but I'll look under sheriff's website.
Anything else?
We have a motion on the table that we should, before you have to leave.
You can withdraw your motion if you would.
Back on this, the motion to move the box, that's where it needs to be.
Getting costs first.
Correct, till the costs and such in
Okay.
are
Well, I
all
would
provided for.
You withdraw the motion.
Yeah. withdraw the motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to withdraw the 25,000 that we had set aside for the original electrical work to be performed.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right,
Aye.
I didn't vote on the first one, so you got enough already.
Yeah. Right,
I'm clear on my marching orders now. I am.
Thank you.
And if there's anything else you need from me, just email me about it, okay?
Okay,
Thanks, sir.
so then
Yeah,
the board's okay, ready to fix what's really.
Yeah.
Come out to the
I
generator
just never
and load
put
that.
this much time into a $5,000 20-foot Connex box.
Need to get a hold of Rick and say.
Well, they're paying for it.
Jerry, you're comfortable with them loading the box and coming out the 12th, right? From what
I
I
think
told you.
I think basically they need it.
They're coming the 30th.
It's part of it.
I don't
No,
understand.
no, the 12th.
No, the 30th.
So did you move it from the 12th to the 30th?
I didn't move anything. No, you're talking about the meeting, which Rick from Fix Resilience is aware of. He's telling me they're coming out to commission that box on the 30th.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the 12th.
No, the 12th is already a date that's already set.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
No,
Okay, I apologize. I know nothing about this,
so
that they were bring people to.
we haven't spoken.
If they load it,
Before you
it's
guys got
palletized.
That
And we move
that's
this, we load it, shut it
it.
down.
So I stopped Rick.
We have
If this is part, what do we do? I mean,
got a big boy out there.
So
you
you won't have
want
to pay
me to
anybody to
not let Fix
relocate it
Resilience
or
come
reload
out
it.
and
As long as it gives me the okay.
commission that box, hook a generator to it. They're gonna hook up the camera, they're gonna do everything, and then what they would do after we relocate it to its permanent spot, they'll come out and they'll unload it, then the contractor will have to go set it, fasten it, then they'll reload it. Well,
Yeah, no,
and I first told him, no, we couldn't do it, and that was at 2:15. He called me back at 2:35 and said, no, we're coming anyway.
I think that's up to you, but I'm gonna lock him out. But, okay, that's between you and him. I don't think, we're not committing to anything when they do that, because I don't have an agreement yet. There's no contract. So I think it's what's convenient for the district. Are they coming out to do Cape Fear the same day or something? Probably.
He said there was on the schedule, basically they're making their round.
Yeah, as long as they are paying to have somebody load and unload it and then load it and load it again, I guess, it's the hassle for you. It's the main.
Well, it's not a hassle. I will doing that.
I know, but they gotta come.
I'm not gonna say,
Well-
he's gonna run a generator right there and don't let it run a generator. That's what the reason for moving it and running a cord across the driveway.
Was it just a test?
No, he's commissioning it.
Oh, I don't know what that means.
He's starting it up and basically, here's your keys. It's running it, sure.
It's
And is this generator gas or propane?
propane.
Well, it's
Dual.
dual fuel, yeah.
Well, I think, they can commission it if they want. I mean, again, I have not signed anything,
So
so,
ask them, tell them, part of the process, if we continue, is gonna be to move this Connex box across the field, and you need to come back, and you need to take it apart and put it back together again at the new location. If you can't do that, then don't come out June 12th or whenever.
No,
Period.
May 30th.
May
May
30th.
30th.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with June 12th.
Yeah.
That's a walkthrough.
You gotta do it.
Got $10 on him saying no to that, but
Well, then don't come out. So you'll let them know.
I'm just trying to get it moved now over closer for power until all this gets ironed out, that's all. So we're not, because who's gonna pay for fuel for the generator if it's
So
going out there for 2 months?
it's our, if there's nothing else, it's now 4:41 and I'm adjourning this meeting. Unless somebody,
So is my direction to cancel this delivery or commission it? Or is it by 5:30?
it's not,
Well, you're closing the meeting before the board even said what they want me to do with this.
well, I thought you would talk to him and say if they wanna put all this junk in there and set up their antennas or whatever else they wanna do, provided they will come out and guarantee that they will take it all out, the box gets moved and they'll come back and they'll set it up again.
I understand that, they'll do that once. What you guys aren't understanding is power's at that.
I know,
How long will it take us to get the footings, get the anchoring, get all that work done? And it'll be here running off the generator.
well,
I just
it's not gonna be
I'm
continuous.
gonna say that, yeah, what John was about to say is, I think as soon as he drives out, we shut off the generator.
Yeah,
There's no reason to
put it
keep,
back in the box.
yeah, there's no reason to keep it running. I mean,
Tell him to bring his.
That's the only reason I was calling Bert, just to move it over there and get rid of all this hassle, is all I was trying to do.
as Brian's saying, we've got a forklift, so if he screws us on the reload, once we move it, then we can, if it's on pallets.
They've committed to unloading, loading.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not,
Yeah.
they committed to that.
And
It's,
I mean-
he's talking about the,
It's just cleaner, it's cleaner for NOSD just to move it over there, not use generator, let them plug it in to the wall, and then just let them use it. I mean, just until we
think
get,
it's pretty new.
well, then I'm gonna call Burton's, I don't know if it'd be reimbursable or what, but I'll call Burton's, I'll get it moved over there in that area, close enough where we can run power plant.
Include it in the cost. I'm sure it'll be reimbursed.
But that's
It's
gotta-
gotta go over a certain amount.
It's got to be
contract.
against the top of the
Then,
pillars.
but then, no, yes, but then they'll load it. And then it'll sit there, the power will run the cord across the driveway. However long it takes for the contractor, because I don't know the contractor's schedule.
Right, no, I get it.
So, and then all the contractor, it'll be part of it, he'll have to pick it up, they'll come out and unload it, they'll pick it up, set it on the anchors. It's cleanest to get it over there. We may at worst get stuck with a burden bill.
No, you won't. Put it in the.
No, I know, but I'm saying at worst case scenario, we've paid Burton.
Okay,
So I'm gonna have Burton come out and move it.
Good.
Hopefully before the 30th.
yeah,
And then they can load it up, can have the electrician, we'll run the wires, we already have the cable out the shop. Okay, so the board all understands that, then I will work getting a contractor to put the anchors in.
And K Mears is gonna send me all of their information about the contractor.
So if they have a contractor, Rob, yeah, please give that to me, it'll save me from making calls.
She's on the call right now, but she's gonna call me as soon as she's on.
Okay,
okay. Does anybody have anything else? The meeting is now officially adjourn at 4:44.
And you